So how does one go from religion to addiction to witchcraft to Jesus? I'm Rachel Kelly, and this is my story. So I was raised Lutheran in a very religious home. I went to religion class every day going through elementary school. I had chapel every Wednesday, and then my family went to the Lutheran church on Sundays. My dad was an usher, and my mom was head of PTL and would do homebound visits. So my life was inundated with religion. It's interesting because when you look at home life, there's a lot of tension and lack of joy. And I knew all about God growing up. I knew all about the stories in the Bible, but I didn't feel like I was part of the story. God felt very far away to me. He was up there somewhere, and I believed it all to be true, but it wasn't my story. Life at home was pretty rough. My dad had gotten laid off at the same time my sister was born, so we were really poor. My mom didn't work, and he decided he was going to go to college to make a better life for us. So he was going to school full-time and working full-time. For years he was not available because he's doing all these things to provide for us and give us a better life. So he was, working as the custodian at my school. The church was helping us a lot with money and food and things. It got pretty rough, When you're in the same room as 30 other kids for years, once your identity is established, you're stuck with it. There's no changing it. And, I was an undiagnosed autistic. So I was weird, basically. And as I grew older, it got worse. And, when kids start bullying, I was one of them that was getting picked on. And it was miserable, you guys. I hated it. I hated life. I would go home and beg my mom to switch me to another school. But, it wouldn't have made a difference, I don't think, because it would have just been the same old story at a different school. The teachers didn't help. They would do things like when I was away at violin class, they'd tell the class, Rachel's family's really poor and you need to be nice to her. So stupid. Towards the end of my time at this school, it's kindergarten through 8th grade, my mom started having questions about the way they did things and went to seek guidance from the pastors. And so she started seeking the truth. She was in a seeking position, graduated out of that school, and I was so happy to be free of that place, you guys. I had gotten to the point where I was rebelling. I wanted the dark side. I wanted to try it all. I wanted to smoke and try drugs and alcohol and do all the things. I had it. I hated life at school. I hated life at home. It all was terrible, and that's what I wanted to do. So I had already managed to get into a cigarette habit through some neighbors down the street, and I was on my way to a downward spiral. So I start high school, and this was the time my parents left the church. So I'm at a high school, which was a whole new game. No one knew me there hardly. And so I had the opportunity to establish a brand new identity. There was a boy that sought me out just like my second day of school there. So he was part of the heavy metal crowd, the hang out back and wear black leather and smoke cigarettes and things like that. So I was all too happy to fall in with them. And I never really felt like I belonged there, but they accepted me. So that's where I stayed. As an undiagnosed autistic, I blended in. And when I graduated my sophomore year, we moved. We lived in an apartment, and the girl upstairs would come down and use our phone. And she was bad news. She introduced me to all the things that I wanted to do. I tried basically pretty much every drug there is, and would drink. We would go party and hang out with some bad people. During these years, my mom was still seeking, and she was starting to get into conspiracy theory and stuff like that. So fast forward, I graduate high school. It's interesting because my last 2 years had been in cosmetology trade school. So I would drive myself back and forth from high school to trade school, and all that freedom wasn't good for me, that's for sure. And I had this life of partying. I was top of the class and head of my parliamentary procedure team and head of the student senate. And I had this secret life on the side where I was really, really, really acting out. And I think about the things I did during those years. I could have been killed easily. I mean, I did some really, really dumb stuff. It's obvious that I had protection all over me. I managed to graduate high school, and I had planned on going to college and majoring in forensics. When I graduated, I fell into a crowd that was doing heroin and cocaine mixed together and shooting up. And these people live life in ways you wouldn't believe. They would go to Target and fill up a cart full of TVs and VCRs and just walk right out and take it to the drug house and trade it, trade all that stuff for drugs. Take it home, put it in their arm, enjoy the high for a little while, and then go do it all over again, steal from somewhere else. I learned how to do all kinds of things that no one should know how to do. It was absolutely horrible, these things I did. And I was shooting up. I was using dirty needles. I was hanging out with these people like for a solid month. And it's amazing I didn't catch a disease or die. I think about all these things that I was doing. I could have gone to prison. I was involved in this stuff. And I remember the first time I ever audibly heard the voice of God. I was crawling around on this bathroom floor in this house. This house was disgusting, you guys. It was filthy. It smelled like cat pee. It was nasty. It was disgusting. It was gross. And I'm crawling around on the bathroom floor looking for used Q-tip tops so I could suck on them. Yes, I'm crawling around on a filthy bathroom floor looking for something to put in my mouth. That's what these drugs will do to you. So I heard a voice, and it said, "You're too smart for this. Get out. Something really bad's going to happen to you." And I did. I basically just got up and walked right out. I left. I never went back. I never saw them again. I went home, and I was sick for 3 days. You guys, I was completely detoxing. I'd only been hanging out with these people for a month, and my body had gotten so hooked on this stuff. It was unbelievable. And that was just a month, When I woke up, I was free of that stuff. And I'll tell you what, after doing all that, suddenly smoking pot and drinking didn't seem too bad, It's no big deal, right? So 19 years old, I'm still hanging out with her. I went back to her. She didn't want anything to do with the needles, so we had split up for a little while. But I went back to her, and we were hanging out and partying, and I had dropped out of college because of the drugs. So I'm just kind of aimless at this point, doing hair for a living. And we were at a party, and there was an outdoor band playing. And I looked up at the stage, and I just had this huge sense of destiny. The guy that was playing guitar and singing, I just knew he had what I wanted somehow. I wasn't necessarily attracted to him, but I wanted to be with him because I knew he had what I wanted. So I pursued a relationship with him. When I moved into his house, he specifically said to me, "I've been really hurt by people, so I'm probably not going to be the nicest to you." And I remember thinking, well, it's going to be different for me because I'm going to be nice to him. And it wasn't. He completely took control over every aspect of my life. I wasn't allowed to order what I wanted at the drive-thru. I wasn't allowed to wear certain clothes. I wasn't allowed to have friends or go anywhere or do anything unless it was involving him and what he wanted to do. Every moment of my life was controlled by him, and my body was not my own. My time was not my own. This guy even beat up his dog. Things in my brain I will never ever escape from because they're just burned in there are so bad. The house I had moved into with him was down in the ghetto. And by about midway in our relationship, like 5 years in, we had a lake place and some forest land. I remember I was working at the library at the time, and there was a girl that had befriended me, and she was a Christian, and she was so different. She didn't smoke, she didn't drink, she didn't do drugs, she didn't do any of that. She drank a little wine, but I'm a complete alcoholic at this point. I would wake up, throw up, get up, go to work, go home, drink all night, do it all over again the next day. That was my life, right? I was so busy coping with the prison cell that I had walked into and locked myself in that I didn't see that I could simply just walk out. I was so clouded by my addictions that I had created, intentionally, basically, to cope with this life that I had handed myself. It was just complete insanity. She would come to my stinky, smoky, nasty house in the ghetto and hang out with me while I smoked pot and drank my beer, and she just hung out with me and loved me. I believe that this girl was the hands and feet of Jesus that first began this journey of scooping me up out of my self-imposed prison. Fast forward a couple years, we were having a party at the lake, and she came, and I so clearly remember she showed up in her nice clean car and brought her little organic potato salad and sat it down on the table, and she hung out for a little while, and then she left. And I remember thinking, I wish I could leave. I wanted to leave. For the first time, I had this conscious thought that I wanted to leave. I wanted out of this life that I had created for myself. So that's when the beer turned to whiskey. Cocaine entered the equation. He always said he'd never let coke in the house, but one of the strippers we were hanging out with would bring it. I was involved in horrible, horrible things. And like I said, my body was not my own. And the places we went and the things that happened are not fit for this video. My addictions just kept spiraling downward once again. And towards the end of my relationship with him, I was 29 years old, and during all these years, my mom had completed her journey out of Christianity and into New Age. She was doing, witchcraft and spell work and things. And she was involved with these people. It was a couple that had a house and a business out of their house. It was a New Age center. She invited me to an open house there. And I clearly remember, I even remember what I was wearing that day. And it was a bright, beautiful, sunny day in the wintertime. I walk into this house. It was so beautiful, you guys. It was like bright and sunny and beautiful, and it smelled good. And there was this ambient music playing that was beautiful. I left a dirty, dark, smelly home full of heavy metal and walked into this beautiful, bright, clean place with this ambient music playing. And the contrast between darkness and light was unbelievable. And I'm just taken in by everything. I was just amazed by everything that I saw. So I ended up buying a CD and some soap and a couple crystals. I tried out this thing on this chair, and you put on these headphones and they put a sleeping mask on you. And there's this amazing music playing, and the chair kind of vibrates from deep inside in tune with the music. And you just feel it all through your body, and it feels really nice. And it's supposed to align your chakras and your energies and all that. And it felt really good. So then everyone's encouraging me to go down to the basement and try a healing, is what they were calling it. So I look at the sign-up list, and it's a mile long. And I'm an alcoholic, you guys. I need to get home and crack open my beer and get on with my life. I'm like, I'm not waiting. I can't wait that long. So maybe some other time. And I'm going to leave. And I'm walking past the basement where the healings had been going on. And there's this man walking up the stairs, and he looks up at me. And I look down at him, and it was like this wham, energy wave just hit me. I remember I literally moved back from it, and I was just stunned. And he's walking up the stairs, and I'm looking at him, and he walks us to the door, and it was really weird, you guys. So that was it. So then my parents bought me a gift certificate to go back to this place. It was $250. I'm like, cool, that's just enough to do this series on the chair. So I was so excited. So I go the first night, and of course I, drank beer before I went, and I, drive myself over there and get in this chair and do my thing. And when it's time and it's over, they both come in, and I had only seen her, when I got there, and she comes in and she's like, we need to check you for spiritual attachments. And I'm like, okay. So he's like, hold out your wrist, and he puts a couple fingers on my wrist, and he closes his eyes, and then he opens them, and he looks at her. She's like, this is an emergency. You have spiritual attachments. You have to come back right away and get a healing. And I'm like, no, I'm doing the chair series. And she's like, this is an emergency. And I'm like, okay, I'll come back for the healing. She's like, you have to come tomorrow night. And I'm like, Saturday night? I'm usually blasted by Saturday night. I drink all day on Saturday. I didn't say that out loud. She's like, you have to come as soon as possible. That's as soon as we have open. I'm like, okay. So I go, and it's crazy, you guys, because all day that Saturday, I was so nervous. I read about spiritual attachments, and supposedly it's like disembodied people that have died and they attach to your body so they can continue to have a human experience. So perhaps if you're an alcoholic, it's because an alcoholic has died and entered your body and is causing you to drink. I was so nervous all day, and I called my friend and I'm like, if you don't go with me, I'm not going to have the courage to go do this thing. I mean, I was literally shaking and my heart was starting to beat really fast. And she's like, yeah, I'll go with you. I'm like, you can have a chair session. Just come with me. She's like, okay. And I had forced myself to not drink all day. I did not want to drink before I went and did this thing. And I couldn't stand it. About 6 o'clock, I cracked open a beer. I slammed a whole 6-pack in an hour, and then I left. I got in my car and drove myself there. And so they get her set up with the chair, the lady does, and I go downstairs and there's like a massage table set up and it's really dim and there's this beautiful music playing and it smells nice. They have like burning incense and sage and things. And I lay on this table and close my eyes and he starts at my head and he puts 2 hands at my head and I just feel this energy course through my body. It's kind of like when your foot falls asleep, but it was pleasant. It felt really good and it was very tangible and very real. So he just worked his way down my body. He started here and held his hands there for a few minutes and then, on my temples and then on my throat and my heart, just worked his way all the way down to my feet. And the whole time I can feel this tangible energy just coursing through my body. And I'm like screaming in my head, help me, please help me. Somehow I knew that this was going to be a big deal. So it's over, and I blast upstairs and I went home. I was on the couch for 3 days. I couldn't get up, you guys. And after that, I had no desire to drink, no desire to smoke. And I'm looking around and I could not stand my surroundings. I'm like, I got to get out of here. And it was so weird because whatever had been done to me had caused me to be so hypersensitive that I couldn't stand to be around people that were drinking and smoking pot. So it no longer became a fear thing of he's going to kill me if I try to leave. It was, I can't stand to be around this anymore. You either got to quit smoking and drinking or I'm out of here. And he's like, he thought I had gone crazy. And Providence set up all these circumstances and I was basically able to sneak right out the door. And before I knew it, I had myself in this, apartment downtown with a secure lock system and I was free. I'm free, you guys. So I am living large. I am on this high that I'm riding and I just dive straight into New Age. I learned everything. I learned palmistry and shamanism and tarot cards and all the divinations. And I learned everything about crystals and animal totems and meditation. I built a copper pyramid in my house to meditate in because it like channels spiritual energy. And I took classes to become a Reiki master. And I'm learning about all these things. And in the New Age, Jesus is one of the great teachers and God is a force. And it's interesting because I never lost what I had grown up with, but I really believed everything they were teaching me. And I learned about reincarnation and, I'm getting deeper and deeper into this stuff. And during this time, the guy had handed me a handful of rocks to wrap for him. And he said, I put something in there for you. Let's see if you get it. I'm like, okay. So one of the things I had learned is you can put Reiki energy in a crystal and, basically impart energy to others through objects. And so I took the rocks home and I'm like, okay, what do you have in here for me? And I'm holding these rocks. I'm like, I receive it. And then wham, I am hit with this thing, you guys. It was like a vision. And I was hit with this knowledge that him and I had been together in past lives and that we were supposed to be together again, that we had arranged to come together at this time in our lives. And I'm just like bawling, you guys. I couldn't believe it because it was so real. And so I wrapped the rocks for him and I took him to his shop the next day. And he was like, did you get what I put in there for you? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, I wondered when you were going to pick up on that. And I'm like, this is real? He's like, yeah. And I'm like, what are we going to do? He's like, well, you gotta wait. I need to save up enough money for us to go, and we're gonna go to Canada. We're gonna start a New Age shop there, and I want to go to Nova Scotia. And here's some books and magazines, house plans, and all this stuff. I'm like, wow, right? So I continue my education, and him and I start having, this affair, and I'm, planning for my new life in Canada. I got a passport and I was getting ready. And meanwhile, he's still saving money. And I hardly ever saw him because, he's living this life with this other woman, and they have a business together, and then they live together. So it was really a hard time for me because, this was all very real to me, and I'm waiting for him to come for me. He kept saying he was going to come, wasn't coming. And it was really, really rough, but I truly believed that it was going to happen. So October 11th was the last time I saw him, and I said, are you coming for me? I can't wait any longer. We don't need a fortune. Let's just go. Do you want to be with me or not? And he's like, I do. And I'm like, do you promise you're coming for me? And he said, yes. And I said, by Christmas? And he said, yes. And I'm like, okay. So I finally had a plumb line. And so I decided I'd give him till my birthday. That's New Year's Eve. And he never came. I never heard from him. Not a phone call, nothing. I'm like, okay. I moved on. So it was towards the end of this time that I had been shopping at local health food shop. And there was a guy there, this beautiful redheaded man that I was very attracted to. And he was obviously attracted to me. We would kind of stalk each other around the store. One day, it was Christmas Eve, right before supposedly, who was supposed to come for me. And we had a meeting. It was the most explosive, crazy thing in the middle of the store. And we met, we shook hands, we said hello, and then that was it. My friend was like, she worked there, so I knew all about him and his story. And she's like, you gotta quit stalking him. Like, I was inventing a reason to go in there every single day. The new year came and went, and it was January, and I'm working. I had 2 part-time jobs, and one of them was at the library in the evenings. So there was a night that they were really late relieving me for my break. And so I go upstairs, and it was so crazy, you guys, because I'm walking down this hall upstairs, and at the end of the hall, I see he goes up the stairs and goes into the music department. I'm like, oh, wow, this is amazing timing. Library's about to close, right? So I go in there, and he comes up to me. He's like, I've been trying to conjure you up all week. And I'm like, well, here I am. So we talked, and he walked me down to the computer center, and we exchanged numbers, and that was it. So that was my future husband. And it was interesting, you guys, because he had a Christian background too. And he had even gone to Bible college. But instead of becoming a pastor, he became a social worker. And so he had this whole foundation like I had. But when he became a social worker, there's a lot of liberalism there. And he had fallen into some Eastern religious type teachings, and like Buddhist stuff that's, really nice, seemingly harmless. And gradual, step by step, he had completely abandoned Christianity and was just like me, into New Age. He was way into, tarot cards and Aleister Crowley, and I was into Reiki and animal totems, and it was just a really nice complementary fit. And it was amazing because we both believed God had brought us together, because the circumstances surrounding our meeting, which I'll have to explain later, we would talk about what we knew from our past and where we were at now, and we talked about believing God was a creator and not necessarily a force, and we couldn't reconcile where Jesus fit in. And it was interesting because all during this time we're into all this stuff, and my high had worn off from when I had first gotten into New Age, and I just wasn't feeling the things like I used to. And people kept telling me, well, you need to meditate more, do a cleanse, whatever. And I'm like, this isn't cutting it. What's wrong? It's interesting because in New Age you're responsible for your own spiritual evolution. It's a lot of work, you guys, a lot of work. Nothing I did was cutting it. I'm like, what is wrong with me? I just started to feel heavy. So then we happened across these teachings by Esther and Jerry Hicks, where they would channel this entity called Abraham. It was a collective entity of spirits that named itself Abraham. I was learning how to do this. It was channeling spirits, where you basically allow yourself to be possessed, and then spirits can speak through you. people that do this are called a medium. They had this book called The Law of Attraction. It just blew my mind. It was so amazing, you guys. I thought it was so cool. I'm like, well, this is the answer, and I was way into this, and I got a whole notebook filled with the teachings, and we were going to go on one of their Alaskan cruises, and life was going to transform, and it was going to be amazing, right? They came out with a second audiobook called The Vortex, and I was so excited to listen to this book. And we designed a whole Abraham weekend. We were going to listen to Abraham, and so we get The Vortex, and we get home, and we put it on. It wasn't like the first book. In fact, there were some things that I really didn't like what they were saying. Like, there is no God waiting to judge you. And I'm like, I don't know, something about that just struck me in my spirit. And then there was this thing where she was saying, if you see someone on the street that needs help, don't help them because you're interfering with their spiritual lessons. Because we're here to learn certain lessons. And once we learn those lessons, we go up to the next level, and eventually, you're completely evolved. So she's saying, you're going to interfere with why they're here, and you're going to hold them back. So don't help them. And plus, it's all contagious, and you can catch what they have, the negativity or whatever. And I'm like, don't help people that need help? I just didn't like how that sounded. It didn't sound right to me. So there was two things that just got me wondering. And so we started talking about, are we on the right track? Something just seemed off. And one morning, shortly after that, Sean wakes up and looks at me and he goes, the bridegroom's coming. I'm like, what's a bridegroom? And he's like, nothing, never mind, forget it. And he gets out of bed. I'm like, woohoo. I thought maybe he had a weird dream or something, I didn't know. And he called an old friend that he had gone to Bible college with. And they were on the phone forever. And I didn't listen to any of it. In the New Age movement, they're very scornful of Christians for the most part. Those silly Christians, they're so unevolved, unenlightened, they're all just caught up in their rules and their religion, which is interesting because that's what I grew up with, was rules and religion. It's very empty. And then shortly after that, he came home with a book of Psalms he had picked up at the used books bookstore, and he would read them to me. And I didn't think it was weird because he was always reading poetry to me. It was just one of the beautiful things that he did. And that was the second thing. He had 3 kids, from previous marriage, and his son's a missionary. And he was going to go to China. So he had an appointment to speak at a church. And it happened to be the church that his old friend was pastoring. And Sean's like, I'm going to go listen to him. And I'm like, I'm not going to church. Are you crazy? And he's like, well, it's my son. And I'm like, will you go? I'm not going. So he went. He kept going back Sunday after Sunday. And he kept trying to get me to go. And I'm like, what are you doing? Why are you going to church? What are you doing? He's like, I want to. And I'm like, okay. So it was about 3 times in of him going to church that I heard the voice of God again. I was out running errands. It started at the co-op. I was by myself, and I'm standing in an aisle, and I'm grabbing a bottle of shampoo, and I heard Rachel. And I'm like, I thought, someone was talking to me, and I didn't see anybody. I'm like, that's weird. Must be someone in the next aisle. Same name, right? So I left, and I was pumping gas at Walmart. And I'm standing there like there's no one around, and I'm pumping gas, and I hear Rachel. And I'm like, what's going on? So that's when I'm like, something's happening here. So then I go into Walmart to get my rice milk, and I'm bent down grabbing some rice milk, and I hear Rachel. And I stood up, and I'm like, what? Who is it? Who's messing with me? And then that was it. I thought, okay, spirits are playing trickery on me. I obviously need to do a special meditation or something, right? So that was it. And then shortly after that, the Gulf of Mexico oil spill happened. And Sean is looking at the news. And there is, pictures of turtles and things. And they're all covered in oil. And it's horrible, right? I'm like, man, I wish I could help. He's like, see if there's a bus trip. Go clean some turtles. I'm like, man, you're so awesome. So he goes to work, and I start researching bus trips. And the news is really weird, you guys. Like, there was no bus trips. Journalists weren't allowed anywhere near. And I read that, they're dumping all this chemical on the oil to sink it. And the oil, so you can't see it anymore, but it's like this deadly chemical called Corexit. It's going to kill everything in the ocean. I'm like, what in the world? And then I I went down this crazy rabbit hole for a minute, and it was July 14th, 2010. The final thing I read was that the explosion on the oil rig had actually cracked the ocean floor, and all this methane gas was coming up, and it was eventually going to fill the air, and once it ignited, it was going to explode, and we're all going to die. What is this? Like the end of the world? And I said this out loud. I said, it's the end of the world. And then I had this memory that when I was a kid, I always thought I'd see the end of the world. I'm like, where's God? And wham! That's when he showed up. So I just felt this energy. And then I saw this. It was like my life from beginning to end, just for a second in my forehead. And then I saw, it was like the whole history of the world, just for a second, right here in my head. Saw a Bible, and I knew, oh my gosh, you guys, I just all of a sudden knew that we were on the wrong track, that I had been raised with the truth. I'm like, what? So I go to my bookshelf and I'm like, what have I been doing? So I pull out my Reiki textbook and I'm looking at it with new eyes, right? I open the cover and all I see, whatever. And then I get to the next page with real writing on it, and it's 3 quotes from people that I'd never seen before. One of them is from Alice Bailey, who is a well-known Luciferian. Like, she worships Lucifer. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I throw the book on the floor and I stomp on it and I fall down and I'm just bawling. I'm bawling my head off because I knew that I had been messing with completely demonic, satanic energy. It was all a trick, that I was basically heading straight to hell on a crystal-lined road. And I'm like freaking out. And I couldn't believe it. And I was just thanking God for showing me the truth and looking around at all of our junk in the house and my pyramid and the rocks and the books and the tarot cards. I mean, our house was filled with this stuff, right? And so Sean comes home from work, and I figured he didn't think I was nuts, right? And he's like, what's wrong with you? I'm like, we got to get rid of all this stuff. He's like, why? What happened? And I told him exactly what had happened to me. He's like, oh. And I'm like, what? And he's like, so do you remember that morning that I woke up and said the bridegroom was coming? And I'm like, yeah. And he said, the bridegroom is Jesus. And I knew that morning we were on the wrong track. I just woke up and I knew. And I prayed to God that if he was real and this was real, that he would come for you too. I'm like, oh my God. I just started bawling all over again. And that was it. Transformation, immediate transformation. Got rid of everything. And I bought a Bible. Then we started going to church. I started going to the church that he'd been going to. And that was it. And it was just amazing, right? And that began my journey of walking with the Lord. And there's so many stories that I have for you about what happened since that day, July 14th, 2010. As of this video, that's been 15 years. And it's been incredible. There's been so many amazing things, and the presence of God has been with me in times of horrible tragedy, like the time our son died. There's so many stories I have for you. I can't wait to tell you all about it. I thank you so much for hanging out with me today and listening to my story, and to God be the glory. So this is Rachel, Honey and Locust, signing off. Until next time, I hope you all have a great day. Bye.